Good morning. Today we are going to be working on our Tiki mask, and I'm going to show you guys how to get started on something kind of like this, that you're going to have multiple layers of relief. So you have the background layer and then at least 3 additional layers that we're building up on top of that. I'll talk to you later about how to potentially glaze yours to look like mine, where it has this kind of rough wood finish looking and then a nice bright flower on it. Today we're just going to be focusing on getting our background layer and then the other pieces built up on top. We'll work on the other stuff later in the week. So to prep for today's project, I actually have already done my design work, and I always want to advocate for using a stencil or a template for our design, in particular because my design is symmetrical, which means it's the same on both sides. So I've cut mine out of a piece of paper, so if you have notebook paper or printer paper, you can use that. I just folded my piece of paper in half, and I just designed the one side to begin with. And you can kind of see I did different lines. I erased some stuff and just kind of went for it. So, and then I even cut it a little bit bigger because I opened it and found that it was maybe a little bit too small. I wouldn't be able to fit all of my details on there. So once you've kind of worked on your half shape, you can also add some extra designs in there if you're kind of still thinking about where different components are going to be. Next step is open it up. I went ahead and put my hole spaces on here so I wouldn't forget to put 2 holes in my project so I could hang this up later with a piece of string. That way it has an actual function. It doesn't just have to sit in my closet. All right, so moving on, after you have your design, the next thing is going to be working on your, let's see if I can make this fit just right here, working on your slab. So I've gone ahead and I rolled out a slab, and this piece of clay is just a little bit thicker than what I would have used for my mug. So just kind of keep that in mind as you're thinking about what size or shape to use for your project. Next thing I'm going to do is just set my stencil right on top of my slab of clay and cut out my shape. And as always in these videos, you know I'm going to work a little fast in the video so it's not super long. And then I'll work on revising this particular Tiki mask, and I'll have another video where I demonstrate how to finish everything. That'll be in the class for Wednesday and Thursday. Okay, so I've cut around my design, and I'm gonna also just use my pencil just really quickly. I'm gonna press in where I mentioned I had some holes in there. The other thing that you can do if you have some design on your paper is this. You can transfer it directly into your clay. So I have my eye already kind of sketched out where I want it to go, and I have some designs on there as well. I want my eye to be in the same place on both sides, okay? So all I have to do in order to do that, and you can maybe barely see that I have an indent where I went over that with my line. To transfer my design, I can hold this up to a window, and this eye is going to shine through. I would be able to trace it on here. Once I have that on both sides, then I can just lay this out again and trace out kind of where my eye is going to go on this other side so they match exactly. Okay, you can see I didn't draw them exact because I didn't do that yet. Same thing with the mouth. I would want to have an outline of where my mouth is going to go, so again it's the same on both sides. You can use that window transfer technique to do that, or you can do it by hand, either one. Some of the other stuff I'm going to do on here is just in my mind. Okay, so one of the things I like to do is add some wood grain texture up at the top just to kind of, again, look like the barnwood. I'm going to do a big tongue because I think that's really fun on these tikis. It's kind of funny and makes you laugh a little bit. Lots of texture around my clay, some added Polynesian pattern design on here with some waves and some dots that are going to be included in my design as well. All right, so 3 layers of relief, that's the big thing here. This has to be built up at least 3 different levels. So I actually already, like I said, I pre-rolled some slabs. So I already have some flat pieces of clay that I can use to build up my design. So I'm going to work on my eyes first. This is where having a stencil is really handy. So I can just take my stencil, and again, I'm going to build this eye part up real quick as the example. So I'm going to trace around my eye, on my slab of clay, cut that out. And then the beauty of that is I can just pick that piece up and cut around it again, and then I'll have two parts for my eyes that are again exactly the same size and same shape, so I don't have to worry about trying to match that later. So faces are typically very symmetrical, so we're gonna want that for our designs. Okay, so just like that, I have got some eyes that are already level 1, level 2 on my project. I want to cut out the center of these because I think they look too chunky the way they are, just a little bit too blocky. So I'm going to cut out the center of my eyes and put an eyeball in there in a little bit. Okay, so just be thinking as you're designing, how can you make your levels of relief really interesting? It doesn't just need to be that you take 3 pieces of clay and stack them up and you're done. Okay, you can cut into them, you can add texture to them, you can do a whole bunch of really interesting things. I can even save those pieces that I cut out to potentially use for some floral design. They kind of look like leaves to me. Okay, so in this inside part of my eye, I'm going to add more of a rounded piece of clay, so just kind of rolling out some clay. I want that to look like an eyeball is kind of tucked in there. And I'm gonna press that from the back up to the front. Remember, if you have any trapped clay in your project, it's gonna blow up. So certainly with an eyeball, you don't wanna just put it over the top and seal it in there because it will completely blow that part off of your project. So now I've got kind of a rounded area in there, and I could continue refining that to make it look much nicer and cleaner. So using a wood tool or a pencil to go through. And now I have this eyeball that has kind of a rounded shape inside the eyelid, essentially. Okay, so that's just a little maybe tip or trick. To give your eye some direction in ceramics, I mentioned this with the monsters, we just put a hole into the eye that creates a shadow. So I can just, again, use this pencil and create a little pupil in that eyeball. All right, so I could do the same thing in my other eye, score, slip, and seal, from the back, score these and attach them really well. I would definitely consider adding some texture to these or flattening the edge of these a little bit. They look a little bit, again, still too blocky for me, so maybe just pressing the edge of my eyes down a little bit and then coming in and adding some texture, come on, so that it's not just a flat piece of clay. So texture with this project is just really important, similar to the monster. You want to have lots of little details that kind of showcase either Polynesian pattern or your own ideas of what you've kind of come up with for your project. Okay, so Polynesian has lots of pattern design in it. So I'm just going to do some dots and some design just with my wood tool, really simple tools that you have at home. All right, now you can kind of see this eye here looks far more interesting than what I had over here. All right. If you don't want to put a pupil in your tiki, you don't have to. I would say most tikis probably don't have that. So I'm actually going to erase mine. That one's a little bit too small. Okay, next thing would be working on the big mouth. So I think that most tikis have a really large mouth. It's kind of a dramatic, oversized space. So here's another example of something that, this was a student one, really large shape. She cut this out of a piece of clay, out of a slab, and then added her large teeth inside of that. So same thing for me. I can use my paper stencil that I have here, trace my mouth shape onto my clay so I kind of know the general size and shape of what I have. And I would recommend thinking about different ways that you can make some clay come off the edge of your design. So with this one here, I made the mouth hang over the slab on the back, so you can see it kind of comes out. Things don't have to stay inside the slab. So for this one, I think I might do something kind of like that, where my mouth or my lips are a little bit bigger than my actual slab size is. Gives me more room to make teeth and all that fun stuff that's gonna go inside. Okay, so I cut my basic shape. Now I'm gonna cut out the center of it. And then this is what I would use maybe for my Tiki mouth. So all of the designs that I do are gonna be inside of this. Again, this is really blocky and round. So you would want to, you know, round off the edges of this so it looks more like a lip, or turn it into texture that looks like wood. You wanna do something interesting with your design so it doesn't just look like you cut it out of a slab of clay. Okay, that's pretty boring. So really think about texturing or smoothing this so it's nice and rounded, whatever it is that you want. And I think I would probably pull my sides out just a little bit more. He looks too happy. So just kind of shape that just a little bit. Okay, so there's my mouth. From inside of that, then I can start adding all of the other details. And with this particular project, adding teeth can be really fun. So just again, out of my slab, I can cut a whole bunch of different teeth that I might incorporate into my project. You can do different shapes. So you could do more like the pointer tooth. You can do some square teeth, whatever you want with that. So there's some examples of the teeth. I also think it's really fun to add a tongue. So maybe you want to do that. So I'll kind of cut this. This will be my tongue. You'd want to maybe thin that out a little bit. It's a little bit bulky. Again, my slab was cut pretty thick just so it wouldn't break for the background. Okay, so that can be my tongue. And I would need something to kind of build up a ridge in the middle of the tongue so it has some shape to it. And then with the tongue, you know, that would tuck behind my teeth. So I could either give my Tiki some kind of big buck teeth here, or come up with a different solution for that. Doesn't have to be quite maybe as high. I don't know, kind of do some revision like that. So there's the idea of having the tongue. I could curve it up. You know, you can do whatever you want to with that. Tuck it down. Okay, so that's an option for something that might be interesting to add. The other thing I would consider adding is a nose. So thinking about kind of the size, noses are gonna connect from the eyes down to the mouth. So again, I'm gonna kind of cut myself a shape that looks nose-ish. So here's my nose. And from there, I'm actually just gonna pinch the nose just a little bit to give this guy some nostrils. So I'm gonna shape that. We'll take the top half off because I don't have that much room. So we'll kind of shape it just about like that so it pops down into my eyes. This nose is still just a little bit big for my shape, but it has more of that nose kind of nostril feel to it. And if you want to be like me and get a nose ring, this is the best way to get a nose ring out of your life because I'm too scared to ever do that. But I love it when the Tikis have them. So, you know, I could consider putting a little loop of clay in here to give this guy a nose ring. Your parents hopefully wouldn't get mad at you for this kind of nose ring. All right, so now he's got a nose ring. Okay, so like I said, this project is all about those kind of fun details and thinking about kind of, I don't know, some of these clever components that you can add onto your mask. So the only other thing I'm going to mention for this first video is the halfway point on your slab. So one thing to really consider is if you have an indentation like this, which I did because I like it for the shape of my mask, so it kind of points in right here, you've got to have some pieces of clay that connect over that indent. So my nose is one where it's going to connect the top and the bottom half. Otherwise, what happens is you get a kind of heavy clay on the top and the bottom, and this becomes a really weak spot in your design, and they will break. Okay, so you've got to make sure that you've got some stuff, some clay that's bonding or looping together these top and bottom pieces. The nose is good. Maybe I'll put another couple pieces in here, maybe build up something in between the eye and the mouth, just to, again, really solidify that spot so it doesn't get too weak right there. All right, so that's going to be our starting point for today. When you come to class next time, you should have approximately this much done, and then we'll talk about adding design at the top and the bottom and adding some other textures and patterns onto your project to make it look finished.